I always use a lot of effort that may be more than needed, especially when I try to focus on something. How to find the balance between virya or effort and relaxation. Well, this is a point that I made during one of the meditation sessions last night, I believe, and that is the skills that we develop during the meditation are life skills. They are applicable to situations outside of the meditation room, off the meditation mat. And so I think everyone has a problem in this area to one extent or another. It's like finding a balance between effort and relaxation. How do you do that? Often effort means stress and tension and builds up to a climax, and then one finds a release in often unsuitable or unwise ways, and you have the cycle that perpetuates itself. And so when we put effort, there's no relaxation, and when we relax, there's no effort. Now, why the breath is such a excellent object of meditation is because it's completely uninteresting. I mean, why would you be interested in your breath? I mean, it's now most people can watch a movie or sit in front of a screen for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, even longer maybe, and not find it particularly difficult. But the problem is that when we are focused on a screen, there's no real effort involved. The content, the sounds, there's the forms, there's the interactions taking place on the screen produce emotions. There's a story, there's a narrative, there's something that carries us along with it. So we don't need to put any effort in the spiritual sense into watching a movie or a play or whatever it might be. But if you watch your breath in the same way that you watch a movie, you'll soon fall asleep or you'll go off into some fantasy, because there's not anything in the breath which is drawing you towards it. So the only way that you can be with the breath is if you make a determination to be with the breath, and if you make an effort to be with the breath. So you just can't be accidentally with the breath, or just like a fluke, except if you're having difficulty breathing, of course. That's another matter. So the focus on the breath demands effort. Now, when we put forth effort into being mindful of the breath, if we put too much effort, then we get immediate feedback. This is a very efficient feedback system that we tap into in meditation. So too much effort, not enough relaxation, you feel tight, tense, stressed. Your breathing becomes constricted, may develop headache or chest pain. So you're putting effort in, too much effort, immediate feedback from the physical and mental phenomena that arise. if you don't put enough effort in, and you're just sort of relaxing with the breath, and then you either get swept off into a world of memory and fantasy, or you fall asleep. So here again, this is the feedback. If your mind is caught up in the past and the future, in memory and imagination, or you're falling asleep, then you're getting feedback, important feedback, that too much relaxation, not enough effort. So how do you find what the balance? Well, being sensitive to the feedback that you're getting as you apply effort, whether or not there are these symptoms of tension and constriction, or whether the mind is refusing to stay with the breath. So in meditation, to repeat, is a very efficient way of learning how to find a balance between effort and relaxation in daily life generally, because you're putting yourself in a kind of a laboratory situation where you're applying a very specific kind of effort and seeing what happens, and then adapting and tweaking your effort appropriately. Venerable Ajahn, you taught the method of zoom out, the breath through the whole body in sitting and to the whole movement of the whole body during walking. Can this whole be a consistency object, like the breath in the nostril? But sometimes it's easy to get lost. I think with meditation, it's like never say never. It means like, there are certain practices and certain approaches which work for most people most of the time, but never all of the people all of the time. And there's some things that work for very few people and very rarely. So it's a matter of trying things out for yourself and seeing for yourself whether you are one of those people for whom, like, this whole body awareness of the breath, or whole body awareness of movement during the walking is a viable meditation practice. Does it lead to the abandonment of the hindrances? Does it lead to stabilization of the mind, samadhi? So learning, again, this is feedback where we're getting from the body and the mind. So in some ways, this retreats are an opportunity just to try stuff out and and see what happens. So I don't have that kind of confidence to say you just do this and it will work. This is shortcut, I guarantee. What I say is, I think that this is a practice that is in harmony. It's not in conflict with the more orthodox techniques that you can find or that are taught. But whether or not you'll have success with it depends on a number of factors, and may or may not work, but give it a try. So there's no absolute kind of answer. Can you make this your main object? This is what I understand by the question. Can this be a consistency object? Can this be the main object of meditation? Probably not, but give it a try. And again, if you find that you're following a particular technique, or in this case, you're expanding the awareness of the breath to the whole body, and you're starting to get lost more and more, then move to the focus on the individual point of the nostril, or within the nostril, the upper lip, and so on. Okay, I have a question regarding sustaining the practice. Sometimes the path gets uninspiring. I rationalize in my head that the Buddhist middle way is the best approach to liberation, but the practice can be dry and uninspiring. Any advice? Yes, stop making it uninspiring. You're doing this. It's not the Dhamma doing it, it's you. So I mentioned a couple of times now the importance of setting your mind up correctly at the beginning of a meditation. First step, any journey, and so on. And here it means the technical term here, yoniso manasikara, is like the way that you're framing, the way that you're understanding what you're doing and the purpose of what you're doing. And looking at meditation, framing the purpose and the aim and so on in such a way that is inspiring. So if you're finding it uninspiring, it means that you're not doing that. So uninspiring means that you want something from meditation and you're disappointed that it's not giving it to you, or you're not getting what you want from meditation. So that's a particular way of thinking about meditation. I meditate in order to get something, and if I get something, I'm inspired, and if I don't get it, I'm uninspired. And if you have a negative frame for meditation, then there's that confirmation bias kicks in, and when things are difficult and defilements arise, then that reinforces the sense that this isn't working. Or maybe you think I can be mindful in daily life and it's a lot easier and I'm good at it, and this is a waste of time and a lot of hard work for very little result. And these kinds of thoughts lead us to turn away from practice of meditation. So what I'm suggesting is that you think, how can I look at meditation and how can I understand its role in my life, or the role I would like it to have in my life, in a way that I find it uplifting and inspiring. The finding something dry and uninspiring is a sign of some negative, unwholesome Dhamma in the dosa, the anger family. So the anger family covers, from sort of red-faced rage all the way down to just the slightest kind of movement away from something. And within that dosa family, this sense, this is not doing it, this is boring. That's definitely within that category. So try to create some positive energy. Oh, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to practice like this, and bring the loving kindness, metta, into the practice. For instance, when you have recognized and isolated that feeling of metta, and you can do that by bringing to mind something really cute, like a cat, a kitten, or a puppy, baby, something like that, and you just get kind of warm, fuzzy feeling, then apply that with the breath. So you breathe in, and you breathe, and you're creating that kind of very positive feeling towards the breath. It's like you're radiating loving kindness to your in-breath, and you're radiating loving kindness to the out-breath. So you can't find this in the Visuddhimagga, and Abhidhamma teachers would probably burst a blood vessel, but it's something that it works. You can try it. It's just creating that very positive, like unconditioned acceptance and love of your in-breath, and then of your out-breath. And you do it for a certain time until you just get over that kind of hump of of boredom and dryness, and then you can put it down and just be with the breath maybe. So you need a whole toolbox of skillful means to deal with the problems. It's not that having no problems in meditation means you're a good meditator. Meditation is about putting yourself in a space where you can look at problems and learn from them and transcend them. Okay.เดี๋ยวคำถามที่เป็นภาษาไทยถ้าเป็นการส่วนตัวก็มาคุยกันตอนบ่ายที่อาตมารับแขกอยู่ในห้องไม่นั้นก็ขอให้เขียนแปลเป็นภาษาอังกฤษ What would be the best practice for a person who has frequent outbursts of anger? Well, the first step is less frequent outbursts of anger, and then work from there. Okay, so anger has to be dealt with in three connected spheres: conduct, emotion, and thinking, which correspond to sila, samadhi, panya, and using different tools in each connected area. In the area of conduct, then we're using the power of renunciation, of restraint, of the decision that I will not express my anger in a way that is hurtful, harmful to others, either by body or actions or speech. So on the level of conduct, we are refraining from hurting, harming others. We're being willing just to be with the anger and not get it off your chest, or as they say. But that's obviously not enough. The second connected area is of emotions, and so we systematically, consistently cultivate the wholesome dhammas which directly oppose anger. Three key ones here are mindfulness, patience, and metta. Mindfulness is key because when we are sensitive to the changes in our bodies and minds, then we have an early warning system before anger becomes volcanic. We can observe certain patterns of arousal, certain areas of tension within the body that tend to, whatever the particular cause of the anger, the kind of pattern of arousal which goes from just being normal to being angry is observable. And so we say, oh yeah, I'm just feeling this way in my arms or in my shoulder or in my neck or wherever it is. This is my early warning sign. I'm going to get angry. And so you can cut it off very easily. Patience, if you do get angry, then just being able to be with it and not express it or repress it. This is anger. It's like this. And what an ugly thing it is. This is anger. And it passes away. I mean, you can't be angry for that long. But the most important factor really is the the thinking, the ideas, the assumptions that lie behind the anger. For example, the idea that people should be a certain way and they shouldn't be another way, or they should act in this way and they shouldn't. And I've told him 100 times before, and why doesn't he? And all the conclusions that you draw from that. So when somebody doesn't do what you want them to do, then you draw conclusions. He doesn't really love me, doesn't really care for me, doesn't really interested in my feelings, and so it becomes a big drama, and that sense of self and injury to one's sense of self becomes overpowering. But if we change our way of looking, things happen because of all the causes and conditions that led up to an action, and we have to remind ourselves again and again, and I'm assuming this is true for most or all of you, that you don't know what's going on in someone else's head. You don't have that psychic power. You might have. If you do, I'd like to express my appreciation, but I'm assuming you don't have this. So when you say they are so selfish, or they're so stubborn, or they're so this, or they're so that, or they're so insensitive, and these are conclusions that you are drawing from inadequate, incomplete data. You don't really know, and you usually put like the worst possible interpretation on people's actions when you're angry. So cool down and just look at what actually is going on here. What are the causes and conditions? And saying it should be like this, it shouldn't be like that. And once you get thinking in that kind of way, but it's my right. And you to think about even human rights. It's quite a valuable idea, and one that's been of benefit to many people, but it's also can cause a lot of unwise thinking about life. Now, we don't have right, you don't have a right to be treated well. I mean, in terms of the nature of nature, we can all decide that this should not occur. When we call that a right, but it's a right because we all agree it's a right, not because it's a law of nature. So when we have these conventions and agreements, and many of which are very skillful, intelligent conventions, but the mistake we make is to confuse a convention with a natural reality. So in summary here, I could go on at some length, but dealing with anger, first of all, do you really want to deal with anger? So you have to be clear with yourself about that. But, then it's a training, cultivation of conduct and speech by not expressing it in a way that's harmful to others, cultivating positive emotions, particularly mental states of mindfulness, patience, loving kindness, and investigating the causes and conditions and the thinking, the values, the assumptions, the premises that underlie this motion. So I got quite a press. I can't say press gang really. I got invited. Surprise! I got invited to a interfaith meeting, and I've managed to avoid interfaith meetings for 40 years, but I couldn't get out of this one. So we're in this interfaith meeting and finding it very difficult to find common ground. And then I thought maybe if we talk about anger, and maybe we all agree, whatever religion we profess, that we all think anger is not such a good thing, and we should try to be free of anger. And then to my surprise, it wasn't accepted as a universal principle. And one of these religious teachers started talking about like righteous indignation and anger and you know, recognizing that there's very ambiguous feelings about anger, especially in the Western world, whereas the idea of anger as being your fuel that you need in a conflict between powerful people and those without power. If you're without power, how do you sustain opposition to injustice when you have very little hope ever of making any change to the way things are? And so one of the most common responses to this is make anger. Anger keeps you going. Anger at the injustice, anger at the cruelty. But from a Buddhist point of view, anger can only ever arise in the first place with wrong thinking and wrong understanding of a situation, of the nature of things. And that the more clearly you see, the less anger you feel. But that there are alternative sources of inspiration and resilience to those who are faced by injustice, that anger is not a refuge, is never a good refuge. And that equanimity and understanding the nature of things allows you to make the wisest choices. So it's not just not being angry and being left with this kind of bland indifference, but an understanding of how things change and what are the factors underlying change, and applying oneself to those with wisdom. You can't do that when you're angry. So yeah, it's just how to stop taking offense or taking the criticism from others personally. Any prescription to let go of past grudges. I'm going to be really blunt and honest here. Is that all right? I'm going to say that carrying grudges for years is pathetic. I mean, how can any intelligent person carry something like rotten and smelly and nauseous around in their mind for years on end? Why would you do that? You know? Yeah, don't do it, basically. Okay, taking criticism from others personally. Well, the more you invest in yourself as being a certain somebody, and the more that your sense of contentment and well-being is dependent on the opinions and the feelings of people around you, then the more vulnerable you're going to be when people criticize you. So that's one thing to bear in mind, you know, to what extent it's important to you to be seen in a certain way and to be respected in a certain way, and how willing are you to let go of that. Then the other thing is that the criticism is, it's a pair with praise. And the more that you crave praise, the more painful you find criticism. So you can't just have like one without the other. You know, if you say, well, like, yeah, I like the praise, I just don't want the criticism. You can't. No, they go together. It's like two sides of one coin. So if you want the praise, you got to grit your teeth and put up with the criticism. But so if you want to be less affected by criticism, then don't take praise so seriously. The more you investigate, this like the number one theme of Buddhist investigation is causality, how things change, the causes and conditions which lead to change. Then the less you take things personally, because you're assuming, you know, this fixed entity, me, and that fixed entity, them, and they are being nasty to you, or this is a misunderstanding of nature of things. And the only way to really unravel that is to look more and more closely at the body and mind. Quick fix: if somebody criticizes you, don't deny it. Take it on and expand on it. This is kind of judo move. So somebody says to you, "How could you do that? How could you be so? You're such a selfish person." So, you know, if you're like a Buddhist, you know, that's really hurts, isn't it? Because, you know, you're trying to be unselfish, and how could anybody possibly see you as being selfish? So hurtful. But don't think like that. So somebody says, "You're so selfish," and you say, "Yeah, sometimes I am. I'm really sometimes I'm far more selfish than you know. You know, some of the selfish things, if you knew how selfish you'd be shocked. You would just open your mouth and say, really, you know, I've been that kind of selfish in my life. But I'm trying to do something about it, and I'm sorry that this particular case makes you feel that. Can you explain a little bit more about it to me?" Yeah, so, and then can go into that. So that's kind of like speech yoga, speech judo, not speech judo. Yeah. Basically, don't be so serious about it all. You know, it's like grudge. Yeah, that's a grudge. I mean, if you hold a grudge, it's usually some small thing, and you've made a big thing out of a small thing, and you've said something to yourself, "I'll never forgive him for that," or "I'll never," and then you just like curse yourself with that kind of thinking. And then it becomes like a matter of principle, and just see the psychological damage that you experience because of holding on to grudges. And also it can have a physical, when you have these kind of not psychological like knots in your mind, then they can very well affect you physically as well, and long-term physical problems. So it just doesn't make sense. It's foolish. Let go. Never mind. I had a story that I thought I offended my best friend, and we were separated, and I I went to India and wasn't in touch with him for about 2 years, and I met him by accident and ended up moving into his flat. We shared a flat together. And I was building up to the moment where finally, after 2 years of feeling guilty and feeling bad about this, I could ask his forgiveness for what I'd done. And finally everything conspired, everything came together, and very difficult. I was very emotional, and I apologized, and please don't hold this in. He couldn't remember. Yeah. There's such a big thing in my life, for 2 years, and well, what? Really? So, this is how, holding on to things from the past, this is the kind of thing that happens. Wow. How would you suggest to manage yourself and your thoughts if you have to face or deal with parents who are always stealing and lying to you? If you wish to remove yourself from them, would it be considered ungrateful? Yeah, I mean, I have some reservations about answering this kind of question, because obviously I don't have all the information that I would need. Just by the way, if anyone's sitting in the sun and you want to shift, please shift into the shadows and to the shade. Whether or not parents would see it in the same way, I don't know. But there are parents who treat their children badly, for sure. Just let everyone move. As regards one's debt of gratitude to parents, irrespective of how parents treat us later life, the very fact that we're alive in the first place and grew up safe and reasonably healthy is already an incredible debt of gratitude. The other point I think I often make, people often overlook, is like, what would be the worst kind of handicap that a human being could have at birth, or one that lasted through life? And I would say it is a lack of language. Let's say you had no inability to understand any language, an inability to speak any language. Can you imagine what that would be like to live a life? Unimaginable, I think. Language, the acquisition of language, the ability to understand and to speak, is one of the most unimaginably wonderful gifts. And to that we owe our parents more than anybody else. We say our mother tongue, so mother and father. So putting the conduct of parents, and sometimes the very hurtful, harmful conduct of parents, within a context, and not to excuse it or to diminish it, but also see that big picture. If living together in a family, and whether it's parents and children or whoever, and it's a really toxic situation, and then leaving is I would think it's probably a good idea, and creating some space, and whether or not to return at some later date or not. But to be grateful to parents doesn't mean to follow their every wish and desire. That if you are, let's say your parents are bank robbers and they want you to follow in the family line, and they want to train you as a bank robber, and you say, I don't want to be a bank robber, I want to be a school teacher, and they say, how ungrateful. After all we've done for you, then I don't think that you should, therefore give up your hopes of being a school teacher and become a bank robber in order to fulfill the virtue of filial piety. So there are higher standards, and which we receive from primarily from the Buddha. And being close to someone and being in the same house, maybe it's not such a good idea for certain relationships and needs some space. So if your feeling is your parents are treating you very badly and can't see any likelihood of that changing, then I wouldn't think it's ungrateful to move away. Okay, in regards to right speech or noble silence, could you please elaborate on what you meant by getting things off your chest? May not be the right analogy. It could actually be putting more on your chest. Okay, so what I meant by that is, we have this analogy, you have this kind of stuff build up here, and then you just get it off your chest, and now you're all right, But what I think actually happens is that every time you do that, then you create, you strengthen the likelihood of having to do that again in the future. And you never develop any more intelligent ways of dealing with this mental states, mental phenomena. And so every time you have some discomfort, then you have this kind of automatic reaction, just want to shout at somebody or let things go, but every intentional action is karma. It strengthens a particular habit. So every time you follow what I would say is an unskillful habit, then you are strengthening that habit, and so you get stuff off your chest. But that means then before long there'll be more on your chest that you have to deal with, and then you get rid of it, and so on and so forth. So it's not I don't think a very skillful means of dealing with this sense of tension and just wanting something to go away. How can one see Devas and Nagas? You can go to one of the big temples in Bangkok and go into the poster hall, and on the walls they have so many, I'm not sure whether they're photographs or pictures, but question is why would you want to see Devas and Nagas? again, with meditation practice, it's very important not to get sidetracked or to want to get something or to be something or to see something, because that will lead to a distortion of the meditation, and craving and this unwholesome desire replaces chanda, or wholesome, intelligent desire. And so that's a sidetrack at best and can be lead to a serious obstacle. If you have a well-stocked memory of images concerning devas and nagas, then also your unconscious can sometimes create these images and seem very realistic. And so you can get caught up with that whole realm. So I don't think it's a very very good kind of path to follow. So devas, monks or meditators who can see devas or nagas or beings from other realms are those who've developed very profound levels of samadhi. So their minds are much more sensitive. Maybe say like they have a bigger bandwidth than most people. So they are aware of, they can see or hear beings from other realms. But most of the monks, who have these kind of powers, they're very reluctant to talk about them in most cases. And because they don't want people, they're fascinating, they're interesting, and that's the lure of the fascination, the fascinating. So in the teachings on right view, the Buddha gives two levels of right view, as the worldly level, mundane level, and the lokuttara, or transcendent level. And one of the premises, one of the teachings that one takes on trust or as a working hypothesis in the mundane right view category is the existence of what we call opapattika beings, and that would include devas, for instance. So there is take on trust the existence of devas, and can share merit with devas, and can aspire to the virtues of devas, but wanting to see them, what would be the value with regards to the practice to abandon the unwholesome, develop the wholesome, and purify the heart? Not a clear-cut thing, I think. So I would say, don't worry about it, but if your samadhi becomes very strong, maybe you have that kind of good karma that you might be able to see these things, these beings. Dear Ajahn, may I know what are the causes for Jhāna, please? Okay, so Jhāna is a name for a level or different levels of samadhi, And samadhi, as I have stated a few times, is the result of stable, unbroken stream of mindfulness. So initially, the practice is to develop mindfulness using an object as a means to stabilize the mindfulness. Samadhi begins where the 5 hindrances end. Now, when the 5 hindrances of sensual desire and ill will, sloth and torpor, agitation, worry, skeptical doubt, these no longer appear in the mind, then this is the state of samadhi. And as one continues to practice, then the jhana factors of vitakka, vichara, so initial sustained application of thought, rapture, bliss, and unity of mind become stronger and stronger. And they reach a certain level of maturity, and then we can call that jhana. And then there's an evolution of the mind, which may or may not take place, and the mind may just reach that particular level. But the principle underlying the evolution of the focused, unified mind is that the coarser elements fall away. So initially it's the rapture, there's some kind of coarseness to rapture which falls away. And then even the bliss falls away until the mind is in a state of equanimity and mindfulness. So it's the mind, it's all the mind, but can talk about an evolution of the mind and group factors, and we call this group of factors by this name, and then there's a change and we call it that name. But these are just applying names to mental phenomena. And so Ajahn Chah, my teacher, would rarely speak in this technical language of jhanas, but he would stress knowing what is present in the mind. You can't know a jhana. You can't. It's not an object of knowledge or awareness. What you can know is the mental factors which constitute a jhana. So if you didn't know the jhana term, you could experience jhana because without knowing, only afterwards. Oh, if it's like this, we call it this. But what we're really interested in is this cultivation of the mind and allowing the mind to follow this evolution. So based upon sila, one develops mindfulness. Mindfulness matures into samadhi, and samadhi provides the foundation for the penetration of the 3 characteristics, the work of wisdom. I'm not going to read this one out. So someone complaining about the behavior of people sitting nearby, and that they're making noises that are disturbing them. Can't hear what I'm saying. But this is meditation, This is what it's about. It's not just about what's happening when you close your eyes. But what happens when you hear a sound that you don't like? That's what we're learning, isn't it? What is it that creates that aversion and that mental reaction? And how can you protect yourself against that? How can you look at what's happening? How can you establish mindfulness in such a way that it's not a big deal? Because once you get that kind of sensitive to people moving and cushions and creaking and coughing and sneezing, and there's always 100 people. There's always going to be some kind of noise. It's sort of like how much importance you give to it. If you want this completely silent, still environment, then better not to go on a retreat. Better just to meditate at home in a dark room. But this is part of it. Like in the Red Meditation retreat, there's nothing that's not part of the retreat. Nothing. Every single thing that happens is a challenge. So it's not the kind of challenge I want. I want this challenge. I don't want. You can't choose. So we have agreements, and of course, I encourage everyone, as I was encouraged everyone yesterday, to be aware. I mean, we have the meditation hall is really packed for this retreat. If it's if you're really feeling constricted and too much, then you can also sit downstairs. We have TVs with you can see me on a screen, but otherwise, it's my effort is not to allow defilement to arise in my mind, and to deal wisely with defilement does arise, to bring wholesome dhammas into my mind, to develop those that are already there. So if someone is making a noise, and please, everyone, try to make as little noise as possible, be mindful. If somebody does make a noise, then how can you prevent your mind from reacting to that? You develop some metta for people, and ask yourself, when people make noise in a meditation hall, are they doing it deliberately? Like, are they infiltrators, like fifth columnists? They've come to don't like Ajahn Jayasaro. I'm going to mess up his retreat. I'm going to go and sit in the middle of this hall and make noises, and so people say, never again. Ajahn Jayasaro retreat, so noisy. I don't think anybody's doing this deliberately, are they? So it's not deliberate, and some people are clumsy, and some people are not very grounded in their body. They're up in their head, and that's the way people are sometimes. And yeah, it would be nice if they weren't, but that's how it is right now. So one side of it is asking everyone to be mindful and quiet as you can be, and not making unnecessary noises. But for everyone else, it's how can you deal with that? It's like that bird so loud this morning. It's called gawau. It's a gawau bird. It's a gawau. But natural noises are not. If that had been one of the retreatants standing outside going gawau, I think you'd probably be a lot more upset. No, that's not a gawau. That's a peacock. So it's a different. But why would it be so different? That sort of ear-splitting noise of a bird, and then knowing that there was somebody standing behind that door going, "Go wow," just to sort of upset us. Why would it be so different if the impact on your ear was the same? So you can see what you add to this impact. So like with bird sounds, there's easy fix for that one. impose. So like, go, wow, just imagine that's Bhutto, you see. And after 2 or 3 times, you hear it as Bhutto, and it's actually a kind of a meditation prompt. So deal with these things skillfully. When I meditate, many times my body will move or even shake. Feels like a muscle spasm. Is this normal? Any advice, please? Yeah, it's not abnormal. It's certainly not anything to worry about, and it can occur for a certain period of time, and then it just disappears by itself. It's quite common. Otherwise, it can be an indication of some sort of lack of. You see, now it's laughing. Like that joke just now. It can be a physical thing rather than a function of meditation practice, and that's why recommend yoga and qigong and tai chi and these forms of exercise which promote this flow of prana or chi in the body, because this kind of spasm sometimes is just like a energy blocks in the body. It's a physical thing rather than a meditation phenomena. So one, be assured it's not weird, it's not abnormal, happens to a number of people. It's not dangerous, not physically dangerous, and put a little more effort into physical exercise, particularly the yoga, qigong kind of exercise, not just like muscular aerobic exercise, but exercise that has an effect on the whole flow of energy within the body. May I have actionable tips? Well, that's a good word, isn't it? On how one can be a sotapanna, please. Yes. Okay, so it's no different from the actionable tips I've given already. It's just the same thing. It's just like a bit further along the road. Now we're talking about how to develop mindfulness or samadhi and panya. This is carrying on this way. 5 precepts is absolute necessity. You cannot realize stream entry unless you have very strong foundation of sila and practice. Yeah, there's no kind of special, I was speaking to someone just now about the practice as a layperson and the Buddha's words in which he proclaimed that I don't have the closed fist of certain teachers. And what he meant by that is that certain teachers will have sort of teachings they give to everyone, public teachings, and then these special kind of esoteric teachings for the initiates, like for the inner core, the special disciples. And the Buddha said that he doesn't teach that way. You have these principles of 4 Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, and anyone can apply. If there's a difference between the monastics and lay people, is that monastic life is established by the Buddha in order to provide the most conducive conditions for practice. So for a layperson, you're doing exactly the same things overall, but in more difficult circumstances. But it's not a different practice. But for lay Buddhists, I've been saying this a few times today, so the Buddha said, if you compare all the suffering that we've endured in samsara in the past to all the earth in the world, in this planet, then the suffering that remains for the Sotapanna is equivalent to the amount of dirt you could get under a nail. So that much. So my own analogy, if you can imagine a road, 1,000-kilometer road from nowhere to Nibbana, okay? If you realize stream entry, it's like 999.999 meters of the road to Nibbana. And once there, you are definitely going to realize Nibbana 7 lifetimes at most, and probably not so much. So it's one practice, and starting off from where you are right now. And there's no special kind of Sotapanna practice or no special Arahant practice, or that's not there in the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. It's all there, all that you need to know. It's just a matter of applying it steadily and consistently. So 5 precepts, 8 precepts on full moon days, or whenever you have some time to spend time in the monastery, meditation retreats. Practice, look, learn from your experience, and that's the way ahead. So that's the Q&A session for this afternoon. I'd like to end at this point.